everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to bring you guys my top 5 books that I read in the month of February. So I'm just gonna be upfront with you guys. It was actually really hard for me to put this list together, not because I read so many amazing books in February. It's actually the opposite. I read a lot of just like 4-star books, which is not a bad thing by any means. Like, I personally prefer to read more 5-star books and have a really hard time picking between all the 5-star books than only reading a few 5-star books and having to like default to those books. Does that make sense? But there are some really great books that I'm going to include in this video. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into it. The first one that I have to mention is Stolen Heir by Sophie Lark. So I'm not going to get too in depth about the plots of any of these books because I want to talk more about why I loved them so much, but this is book 2 in Sophie Lark's Brutal Birthright series. This is also a Beauty and the Beast retelling about Miko, who is the leader of the Polish mafia in Chicago. And then we have Nessa, who is a part of this family that encompasses both the Irish and the Italian mafia, because in book 1 they formed an alliance. And so he kidnaps her, takes her to this like crazy Baroque style mansion. We have Nessa, our heroine, and one of the things I adored about this book is her character journey in particular, because she is a ballet dancer. She's also a choreographer. She works for this ballet company in Chicago, and seeing her like choreograph pieces and like reading about her dancing in general and why she loves dancing and like all of that was just so cool, because I love ballet. I adore dancing. For those of you guys that don't know, I am a singer, but I'm also a musical theater performer. So I'm an actor and a dancer as well. Though my dancing isn't amazing, I would say I'm more of like a spirited mover, but I just love dancing so much, and so I loved reading about that, you know. And then we've got Miko, who in the first chapter, by the way, content warning for suicide, in the first chapter, his sister gets brutally attacked by these guys that are in the Polish mafia, and she ends up killing herself because of that. And so then he takes revenge out on the guys that attacked her, and so that's how he finds his way into the Polish mafia, basically. But yeah, he's now like a husk of a person, and so he does pretty terrible things throughout the book. It's just really beautiful to read about him becoming someone who would be worthy of someone like Nessa. It's a beautiful story, but what I will say is that the romance alone isn't what makes me love this book. It's also, like I said, Nessa's character arc, and also reading about the different relationships between these different mafia families and things like that. Like, it's just so interesting, and I just wanted to keep reading. I think I read this almost in one sitting. Like, I just could not stop reading. So I'm so excited to continue on with the series. This is book 2, like I said, so I have 4 more books to read in this series, and then there is another series called the Kingmaker series, which is connected to this one, and Sophie Lark has a few other books as well. I was so obsessed with this book that I bought physical copies of most of Sophie Lark's backlist, so that should really tell you something. So obsessed with this one. Next up, we have the Antiheroes in Love Duet by Gianna Darling. So I read this as part of a reading vlog that I did, where I read some of Tori's from Novel Life, some of her favorite romance novels. And when I was deciding on books to read for that vlog, this duet was the first thing that popped into my mind, because I know that this is a duet she loves. I know that she's read it more than once. She featured this in her top 21 books of 2021, and the way that she pitched this was just everything, because it involves Dante, who's kind of a sunshiny hero, and then Elena, who's a grumpy heroine, and you never see that in mafia romances. I had never read anything by Gianna Darling, and the writing in this is stunning in my opinion. Like, from page 1, I was sucked into her writing. I actually found myself slowing down the audiobook so that I could sit with her writing more. And the way that Dante provokes Elena, this also turns into like a forced proximity romance, because basically Dante is accused of murdering someone who is the leader of this other mafia family. And so Elena is a part of his legal counsel. She's a lawyer, and so Dante demands that she comes to live with him because he's on house arrest. And like, oh my god, the sexual tension and chemistry between Elena and Dante from like page 1 is absolutely everything. I am absolutely obsessed with these two main characters. Dante, I've said this once and I'll say it again, he's my new book husband. I adore him with my whole heart because while he is sunshiny and he can be flirty and charming and all of those things, and like I said, he provokes Elena, but when he needs to be a ruthless, and I mean ruthless and brutal mafia capo, he really goes there. And what was also really amazing about this duet is that somehow I loved book 2 even more than book 1, and I absolutely adored book 1. I don't know how Gianna Darling did it, but like, wow. And these two characters really go through it. Like, Elena and Dante earn every bit of their happily ever after, and it's just so beautiful, so sexy. Oh my goodness, the steamy scenes in this, chef's kiss. Incredible. I can't recommend this highly enough. Between this duet and then Stolen Heir, like, I feel like I am now becoming a mafia romance fan, which is really funny because I started reading mafia romance in 2021 and I was like okay with it, but I wasn't finding any books that I actually like loved in the genre. And so now after reading these books, like, I am becoming absolutely obsessed. So yeah, let's move on before I talk about this duet for too long. Next up, we have Sweet Talk by Cara Bastone. So this was originally released as an Audible original audiobook. It has now since also been released as an ebook version. However, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you listen to this audiobook. If you have an Audible membership, this is a part of the Audible Plus catalog, so you can listen to it for free, you know, as a part of your subscription. So this is about our heroine, Jess. She has taken over being the super for this apartment building that her father was the super for, but now he has cancer and he's very ill. He's been living in hospice care, so she's dealing with that. And then we have Elliot, our hero, who also lives in this apartment building. This is essentially a wrong number romance because when Jess gave Elliot her number, because she's, you know, the super for his apartment building, he put in her name wrong. He put her in just as like JD, and so he accidentally texts her when he meant to text his sister. And so I love this audiobook so much because it takes place primarily, they're talking on the phone to each other, and she knows who he is, but he doesn't know who she is, and there's a very specific reason why she's hesitant to tell him who she really is, and it's just absolutely adorable. They both have insomnia, and so they start watching like the Great British Bake Off together, and like their conversations are just everything, and Elliot is just the sweetest of Cinnamon Roll and Sunshiny Heroes, and he's also the author of this really cool web comic. And Jess is more of like a grumpy heroine, more of like an intimidating heroine. She wears like a motorcycle jacket and she rides a motorcycle, and it's just, it's so amazing. I can't recommend this highly enough. I've already talked about this in a couple of my videos because I included this as part of my Grumpy Heroines book recommendations video, so I will link that up in the cards above if you are interested in grumpy heroine, sunshiny hero romances. Just like with last month, I have to mention a Cassie Mint novella for this top favorites of February. So for this month, it has to be Big Boss, which is another novella that is part of her Big Boys romance novella series. These are all standalones. You definitely do not have to read them in order. This one is an age gap between our heroine, who is like in her early 20s, she's in college, and then our hero, who is the heroine's best friend's dad. So we've got that going on, and I will say, you know, age gaps are not usually my cup of tea. Like, I'm okay with them. I'm kind of indifferent towards the trope, but I thought that this one was just so well done. Once again, Cassie Mint knows how to write pining, like mutual pining. It's just, it's so freaking good. And I also really appreciated how the issue of the heroine dating her best friend's dad was addressed, because yes, there was some drama with the best friend, but the way that her best friend came to terms with it was really cool. So I like that Cassie Mint didn't harp on that too much. And yeah, this was just so great. I cannot wait to read all of the novellas in this series. Like, I am just becoming more and more obsessed with Cassie Mint as I read more of her novellas. So I really don't have much more to say about that one. Then last but certainly not least, we have a Hermione fan fiction. I've definitely been going down this rabbit hole. I've talked about this in numerous videos at this point. I have like at least 20 more downloaded onto my Kindle. I also have like other ships from Harry Potter downloaded onto my Kindle. Like, I have a couple of like Harry and Draco fanfics. I have like a Neville and Hermione one. This one is about Draco and Hermione, and they're both adults. I'm finding that I really am enjoying the fanfics where they're both adults. I do have some downloaded where they're like 8th year alternate universes, so they're still teenagers, but I really appreciate the ones where they're now adults. So this one takes place in 2003, a few years after the war. The war ended in 1998. So Hermione is basically having issues being intimate with a partner. She finds that she can't clear her mind. She's constantly thinking about work and other things, and she just can't really find all that much pleasure in being intimate with somebody. And so she decides to do a bunch of research, typical for Hermione, and she looks into BDSM and dominant submissive relationships. And she decides to join this club called the Scarlet Order. This is a BDSM/sex club. To try to see if this will help her with being intimate. And so she ends up being paired up with a dominant who ends up being Draco Malfoy. And so on their first meeting, she is wearing a blindfold because those were the instructions given to her. And she also has glamored herself to look like somebody completely different than herself. And so they start being intimate with each other. Again, she doesn't know who he is just because she's hearing a voice, and she hasn't like seen or spoken to Draco in years at this point. But at the very end, her glamour falls. He realizes that she's Hermione. Hermione freaks out and she just like immediately leaves. And so things go on from there. I think I'm just gonna leave the plot at that. But this is easily one of the most like intense things that I have ever read. Of course, there's a lot of sexy times happening in this. Like, this truly gets like a 5 out of 5 on the spice scale. Oh boy, is this spicy. And Draco in this, oh my God, he is so swoony because like the praise kink in this is everything. Like, he is just like the perfect dominant in every way. And this is just a fantastic introduction, by the way, to BDSM if you're just getting into like BDSM romances or anything like that. Or if you've read 50 Shades of Grey, you should read this because 50 Shades is definitely not an accurate depiction of a dominant submissive relationship. I'll just leave it at that. But I love it the way that this like introduces different like terminology and different kinks and things like that. The development of their relationship from going from this just dominant submissive physical relationship to something much more is just beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. Also, it can be very gut-wrenching at times. There's also this really interesting mystery going on with Draco working for the Ministry. Hermione has been working for the Ministry for years at this point. Basically, Draco has been secretively working for the Ministry of Magic and training Aurors how to use occlumency. And if you don't remember what that is, that's basically the art of like training your mind so that you can block other people from invading it and, you know, reading your mind and all of those things. So this was fantastic. I will say it's long. A lot of fanfics are very long. This took me several days to read. I would read like about like 15% of it per day because like I said, it's just so intense, so dense. So it definitely took me a while to read, and I would definitely recommend reading it that way as opposed to trying to read it like in one go or in one sitting or anything like that. I could talk about this for hours. And I'm already so excited about my next Hermione fanfiction. This is just like the best ship ever in the Harry Potter world, in my opinion. Like, I am just obsessed with like the enemies to lovers vibes that these two characters have. All right, guys, that's going to be it for the top 5 books that I read in February. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to tell me about some of your favorite books that you read in February, if you want to give me any recommendations, anything like that. I always love hearing from you guys in the comments. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do. And with all of that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!